Welcome to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life, with psychologist and author of over 75 books, Dr. Barry Weinhold. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life with Dr. Barry Weinhold. Dr. Weinhold, hello, good to see you. How are you today?
Well, I'm happy.
That's good.
Yeah. And are you happy?
I am very happy right now, actually, yes.
Well, tell me what makes you happy.
I have spent the last several months trying to find a little bit of work-life balance and to carve out some time for a personal life.
Uh-huh.
And it's going exceedingly well. So
It's working, huh?
it is working, yeah.
Good.
So
well, I'm happy when I'm doing all the things that I want to do, and also it's been very important for me to keep a balance between my work life and my fun and my leisure life, and I do that in a number of ways. I limit my BetterHelp clients to 3 days a week. They're sometimes long days, but I'd rather do it that way, get it all over with. And then I have 4 days to, actually it's only 2.5 now. I've started to cut out the last evening of the third day, and so I can go and do some more fun things that happen on Wednesday nights. So and that's made a big difference, just to have an extra half day to have fun this time. So that's been a big priority for me. I mean, when I was a kid, I'm a teenager, and I was in church and I would pray, as when we had the time in church where everybody had to pray for something. I always prayed for two things. I prayed for wisdom, and I prayed to be able to live a life of harmony and balance. And I don't know where I got those things, but they stuck with me. I mean, that's basically what, if I were to pray today, that's the two things I pray most for.
Yeah.
And so I really spend a lot of time thinking about how to keep everything in balance. And it's important to me to, in terms of, I'm in charge of my life. No one else is telling me what to do. And so if I can, and like you, I mean, you work for yourself pretty much. And obviously you have clients you have to please, but, and I do too, but basically much of your life is under your control.
Yes.
And that's what I've strived for. And I know some people have lives where they don't feel like they're in control, and they feel like other people are controlling their time. And in some ways that's true. Sometimes people work jobs where they don't have much control over their time. They have to do a 9 to 5, or even sometimes working overtime on jobs. And so it's a challenge. I mean, I've been lucky, I think, working as a university professor. I could define my time much more to my liking than if I was working a 9 to 5 job. And I never really had to do that very much. Anyhow,
nice. Well, sometimes you can get addicted to working, or addicted to all of these sorts of things where people think of it in the sense of drugs most of the time, but anything that gives you a response.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's working, and sometimes that's other things. And actually today we're going to be talking a little bit about that,
right,
addiction to adrenaline and adrenal fatigue. So could you let me know a little bit more about that?
Well, I want to start with just talking about addictions.
Okay.
I think we live in a fairly addictive society, and my definition of an addiction is pretty general, but it's any ritualized, compulsive, comfort-seeking behavior. So, I mean, alcohol or drugs or even exercise or shopping or work or sex or any kind of thing can be addictive if it's comfort seeking. And so, what is the problem here? Why are people having to seek comfort all the time? Well, it's because they haven't tamed their demons to start with, back to our first episode this month. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we have things going on that seemingly are out of our control. And and we know from talking, when I talked earlier in the other episodes, about how our beliefs and our inner unfinished business tends to control our lives. And we let that happen. And we then live addictive lifestyles. But I've found that there's another reason for this, which is virtually not covered in the literature anywhere. I mean, you go to the addiction literature, you won't find anything about this. But the way I found out about it, I have a colleague who lives in California, in Willits, California, named Jed Diamond. He's a social worker. And Jed was a triathlete in his prime. And you know what that is. They have to be runners, they have to be swimmers, and they have to be bikers.
Yep.
And they have to compete on time trials and everything. So anyway, he was training for his next event, and he was out jogging, because part of the triathlete is to run as fast as you can for some distance. And he had a heart attack on the trail. It wasn't fatal, but it was a sure wake-up call for him. And he said, I don't know what's wrong here. My health is about as good as it could be. I eat well. I take good care of myself. I get enough sleep. I have my life is working. I don't have a lot of stress in my life. Why would I have a heart attack? And so he started to try to answer that question for himself, and started to look really deeply into his own demons. And why would his demons cause him to have a heart attack? I think he was at that point in his mid-40s. And what he came up with was pretty interesting. He found that he was living an addicted, adrenalized lifestyle. Even training to be a triathlete and being a triathlete was a form of adrenalized living. Because obviously, if you're performing at that level, you're using up a lot of adrenaline doing that. But he said it was more general like that. And so he started to write down all the things that he was doing that could be causing him to be living an adrenalized lifestyle. And I got the inventory that he gave me, and with his permission, I edited a bit and changed a little bit, because he had his times where yes or no, is this present or isn't? But I said, I put it on a 4-point scale. Is it present a little bit, some, or most of the time, or none at all? So in that, I called it an addiction to adrenaline inventory. And what Jed found out in his research is that our own adrenaline is probably one of the most addictive substances to the human body. It's even as addictive as cocaine. And the reason is, chemically, our own adrenaline, our adrenal hormones, are in the same chemical family as cocaine. And here's the inventory that Jed came up with. And as you see, I took liberty to make it into a 4-point scale, and you rate yourself on each one of these, and you come up with a score. Well, I give these to all my clients, because I want to rule it in or out. Is addiction to adrenaline part of what's causing them to not tame their demons and run away from them? Or is it something else? And in most cases, I can rule it in, because when they fill out this inventory, they're even surprised at the score they get, because it's so normal. Nobody even knows or pays attention to the fact that they're living an adrenalized lifestyle. And so it's the first step is really becoming aware of what you're doing that's causing you to use up your adrenal hormones more than you should be. Now, why that's important is that we have, I don't know if this is accurate, but we have pretty much a finite number of adrenal hormones in our endocrine system. The HPA axis is often what it's called. The three hormones that are connected with adrenaline. And anyway, what he found and what I've been seeing in my clients is that it's pretty normal in most people's lives to live an adrenalized lifestyle without even knowing you're doing it. Because after a while, you get addicted to your own adrenaline, and you need more of the same to keep the lifestyle going. So it gets worse and worse and worse as you continue to need more and more activities. I mean, I sometimes hear clients say, well, if I don't do that, I'll be bored. You know, you've probably heard that too. Yeah, people will say, oh, gee, if I don't go out and carouse till 3 in the morning, I'm bored. Well, it's doing some damage to your body, guys, girls, and you need to be aware of that. And so I really feel like it's one of the biggest obstacles, besides connecting the dots as we did in the other episodes, to looking at how to live a more authentic lifestyle. Because when we're adrenalized and we're living an adrenaline lifestyle, we're still paying homage to our inner demons. We're actually running away from them. And now we're addicted to the process of running away from them in such a way that that it's very, like any addiction, it's very hard to get free of. And so I do work with my clients about how to get free. And I have a little handout about how to do that. I should probably put that up. I forgot to put that I don't think I put that with our stuff, how to change your score on this inventory. But basically, if you look at that inventory, put the inventory back again. I want to say a couple things about it. I mean, you can see these are just everyday things that we do. They're not out of the ordinary. We're not jumping out of planes or kayaking down the Grand Canyon or anything. We're just doing every little everyday thing that is creating a secretion of adrenaline in our body and creating stress in our body. And we know from all the research, all the health research, the biggest killer of people is stress. And so I began to research this even further, because I do think that it probably is the biggest disease of our times. I don't think in my times there were as many people addicted to adrenaline as I see today. I may be wrong. Maybe I'm just seeing more of them. I'm getting have a way to connect with more of them. But I do think that that this is a disease of our times. Do you understand what I'm saying, Ben?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How do you see it?
Well, I think that I think that most of the time now, we're constantly there are constantly things that are giving us adrenaline. There's so many things that we're all getting pulled in so many different directions every day.
And
That
being bombarded so much 24/7 with all the stimulus from news around the world is probably also adrenalizing people.
exactly, yeah, and being so connected, and things like YouTube rabbit holes and scrolling TikTok and Instagram
Yeah,
and things like that that can really take more of a toll on you than you think.
right. So first of all, the first thing I'm trying to get across is take this inventory for yourself, people who are watching or listening to this, because that'll give you some idea of whether or not you have an addiction and you're living adrenalized lifestyle and didn't know it. The first thing is being aware of it. And then if you look at the items on here, a lot of these we could change just by thinking more about it. Like I talk fast, or I drive fast, or I eat fast, or I read while I eat, or I read in the bathroom. Those are all things we could change. And even the one down, number 33, I hate to make 2 trips carrying in the groceries. I'm guilty of that. I try to, it's almost like a game. Can I get all this groceries I just bought into the house from the car in one trip? Now, it's pretty foolish. So I busted myself on that one, and I don't do that anymore. I at least take at least 2 trips. And yesterday I made 3 trips, bring the groceries in. So there's things you can do very simply to change this lifestyle. But the first thing is you got to do is be aware of it. And that's what I'm hoping this will help you become more aware of it. And the reason it's important is this, that, and I think the statistics are now, and I just read these, I didn't read back on how wide a sample size they had, but the research showed that 80% today, 80% of the people alive today are adrenally fatigued. In other words, they're suffering from something called adrenal fatigue. And the doctors have a name for it. They call it Addison's disease. And it's really well, you see how popular that 5-hour energy drink is? You know, that's because people by midday are worn out. They're now suffering from the symptoms of adrenal fatigue. And so I began to then take this inventory that I got from Jed and make it more specific. So I've developed another inventory on how to tell whether you have adrenal fatigue or not. So you want to put that up on the screen? I can talk about that. Do you suffer from adrenal fatigue? And so there's 70 items on here. Like I'm unable to relax and do nothing. And again, it's a 4-point scale. This is almost never, occasionally, usually, or almost always. And then you answer each one of these items, and there's a score at the end. It tells you how severe a case of adrenal fatigue you already have. I'm assuming if 80% of the people have adrenal fatigue, obviously it's a continuum. Some people have it worse than others. And yet the story I have is my massage therapist one day was coming. She missed the week before because she had a panic attack and went to the hospital. Went to the emergency room. So I asked her about that. How are you feeling? Well, I'm about 80, 90% back. What happened? And she told me, and I said, where do you think that came from? And I said, is there anything in your background? Do you have any trauma in your background that might have been caused that? And she actually had a diagnosis of adrenal fatigue from some physician when she was 21 years old. And now she's 28, I believe now. And so she thought for a minute. She said, yeah. She said, when I was, I think she said 4 or 5, my girlfriend's boyfriend tried to choke me. And I said, oh my God, tell me about that. So she told me the little story about it. And the important part of it was what was unfinished about it. After it happened, nobody talked about it again, ever. And so there I said, is what's unfinished about this. You've got to talk to your mother and your girlfriend. And I don't think the boyfriend's in the picture anymore, but they were responsible for putting you in danger at 5 years old. And you need to talk to them about that, how that affected your life. And so she did that. And as a result, she's free from the panic that she had before. And she's had a couple of situations since then that would have caused panic, and it didn't. So again, it's a case of connecting the dots, finding out where it came from, what was unfinished, and how it can be finished now. And so these items on here, go to the second page, Ben.
It's the second page is not coming up for some reason.
Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, well, anyway, on the second page, it tells you, interprets the scores that you get. And I'll just talk about that for a minute. These are all kind of symptoms of something that is now called adrenal fatigue. I've researched these, and all of them are attached in some way to the effects of adrenal fatigue. And so it's very clear that when you look at all these are probably things we all do, and don't really have any idea of the effect it's having on our body. It's using up our adrenal hormones faster than they need to be. And adrenal hormones are wired into us because that's what nature and our instincts provide for us to protect us in danger. But if we use up the adrenal hormones in other ways, we're using them for the wrong reasons and can wear them out. So if you don't do anything about your adrenal fatigue, it leads to adrenal exhaustion eventually. And that's called Cushing's disease by the medical profession. And people who have Cushing's disease are in really bad shape, because the next step after Cushing's disease, or as a result of Cushing's disease, is death. Because what happens when we run out of adrenal hormones, the body goes searching for them in the organs. And in doing so, they are stressing out the organs. So if you have any organ, like a kidney or bladder or liver or heart or anything, any organ that is already stressed, this will add additional stress to that organ, and it will kill you, because it will lead to what is called organ failure. And when you have organ failure, you die. The research is that people who have high levels of adrenal fatigue live 20 years less than those who don't. So it has a severe effect on our body, and it can kill us, and it can kill us and cause us to lose valuable life experience, a lifetime. So I would urge everyone to take the inventory that's up on the screen. It's available to anyone in the audience to use and score. And if you have a high score, I strongly advise you to go seek medical advice and medical treatment, because there are some medical treatments for it. There's also some other tests you can do. There's an adrenal fatigue test you can take. Actually, there's even a home version of it. So if you go online, you can find out what the tests are that even validate what this inventory says, that tells you whether you have adrenal fatigue or not. And then there are some substances you can get that help you with your adrenal problems. However, the biggest help to me is tame your fucking demons. Because that's where all the stress is coming from. And that's why you're adrenalized. And that's why you're doing all these activities to ward off thinking and feeling about this adrenalized feeling you have inside of you. And why you need then eventually, as you get addicted to it, more and more of the same. So that's my answer to this problem, is that basically people have to begin to take responsibility for understanding that whatever has happened to you is stored in your body. And if it's something that's not finished, it's going to cause some stress in your body. And that stress over time is going to erode away at your physical health. And so there's a connection between mental health and physical health that's very important. And in my next episode, we're going to talk more specifically about that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Weinhold. And if you are looking for any of the resources, whether that be the 2 inventories that we just saw, the quiz, the self-quiz, or any of the charts or quizzes that we've talked about in previous episodes, you can click the link in the description in the show notes of this episode. That will bring you to a Google Drive with all of that information. And that is it for this. And you can also check out circle.org just click the link in the show notes to learn more about Dr. Weinhold and everywhere that you can find him. Thank you so much, Barry. I really appreciate it. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Good. Well, good to be with you, Ben, and help me bring this information to an audience that I don't think very many people know about this whole thing. And a lot of things that what I'm sharing with the audience are things that I discovered, some by accident, some by some long research and time on my own, helping myself. But I'm now wanting to share, because that's the other thing that makes me happy, when I can share what I've learned with other people and hopefully make their lives better and make them happier.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And we will see everybody next week on Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life.
Right.
For more information, please visit the Colorado Institute for Conflict Resolution and Creative Leadership at CICRCL.org or click the link in the show notes.